My name's Charlie Van Derven. My company is Social Advisors. I'm a fractional CMO to mostly RIAs, but also some independent broker-dealer advisors. And we've got partnerships scattered throughout the industry. We do some fulfillment on our side, but we're very light on video. And so super excited to be joined today by Nate and Nick from SageContent. They have created a way for advisors to use video in their marketing with a lot less effort. So I'm excited to talk about that, how AI plays into that, why video is so important for advisors today. I have my own thoughts on that. Just making sure, I asked earlier, but we've got the Q&A box and we've got the chat box. So if you've got any questions for me or for Nate or Nick, and this is really their show, I'm just here to answer questions and moderate. But if you got any questions, put them in the Q&A box or in the chat box, and I'll keep an eye on that. And I'll either answer you directly or we'll bring it up directly to Nick and Nate for their input as well. With that, Nate, thank you guys so much for joining me. In addition to that, everybody who's shown up to spend a half hour, 45 minutes, or an hour of your day with us, we appreciate that. That's valuable time. So thanks for hanging out with us.
Yeah, thank you so much, Charlie. This is such a pleasure, and I'm excited we get to share just a little bit of what we've learned doing this ourselves and doing it for other advisors. But I won't kick off. I'll let Nick introduce himself first.
Yeah, so we're going to do a lot of teaching you guys. That's really what this whole webinar is about, teaching you guys the do's and don'ts of video production as a financial advisor. So it's helpful to give you guys a little bit of context to who we are so you know why or why not you should listen to us. I started off as a financial advisor for 4 years. Then when COVID hit, I was locked inside, got super bored. This app called TikTok was coming out of the scene and was like, I know a lot about personal finance that younger me really would have liked to learn. So I started posting some videos. About a year or two later, have about 1 million followers on there. Fast forward today, I have about 1.8 million followers. I've accrued about 350 million total video views on content that I've made myself. And I'll let Nate dive into how his video journey started and how we are working with advisors now.
Yeah, Nick and I ended up walking very parallel paths for a long time. So it was awesome that they got to converge down the road. But while Nick was exploring ways to exit the financial advisory industry and become a full-time content creator, I was looking for ways to expand my career as an advisor. So both Nick and I are CFP professionals. I wanted to build my own RIA. And some of it was out of necessity, because I was the most overemployed college kid I knew. And then COVID hit, and the principal of my firm decided that it was one shock too many and that he was going to retire and stop growing his firm. And so I got laid off a month before I graduated college in the middle of a pandemic. I sat down and I was like, no one's hiring. If I start my own RIA, it will prove that I am unbelievably employable when people turn their lights back on and actually start hiring. So if I'm going to spend any of this time doing something, it might as well be growing an RIA. And you finish out the first year, 2020, and I had 4 clients. My mom, my grandma, like just not even a hobby, right? Not even a starting point. And I couldn't do any of the things that I'd been trained on. I couldn't do seminars. I couldn't go knock on doors. I couldn't invite people out to coffee. I couldn't do any of the tools that I had been trained on as an advisor in the early stages of my career. But just like Nick, a little app called TikTok was coming on the scene. And so I started my TikTok channel January 1st of 2021. And I said, if I have 1,000 followers by June, I will consider this to be a win and I'll keep doing it. Flash forward a month and a half, I had over 50,000 followers. I did not go as far as Nick by any means. I have about 250,000 followers, but I used it to build my RIA. So it was entirely designed around how do I make video content and build a lead funnel that turns this trust into intent and actually turns people into people who would trust a 22-year-old at the time to steward their assets, right? The hardest sale you could possibly make, as far as I'm concerned. Video was the only feasible way I could build that level of trust without needing to know them personally, right? And I onboarded 172 clients in 9 months. I realized very quickly that was a horrible business decision, because then I was working 14, 15-hour days. And I wish it was 14, 15-hour weeks. And so I then spent a huge amount of time going through massive learning experiences and hiring a bunch of people and just trying to make the business work from there, all while keeping the content engine running, right? That is where we get to the purpose of this entire presentation, which is when you're that busy, when you already have so much going on in your life, how do you build a scalable video strategy that isn't a second full-time job, right? It fits into the practice that you've already built around yourselves. So that's where we're going to dive in. We're going to talk first about what in the world video content is, because it's so broad. And I think at this point, Nick and I have been doing this for years. And when we first started doing this, we had to explain to people what video for advisors was at a baseline. And I think now many of you are walking in with a far better context than any advisor had at the beginning. But I still want to define them because it's important to know them at a granular level. So the first version of video content is short form video. Short form video is your Instagram reel. It's your Facebook reel. It's your TikTok. It's your YouTube short. These are videos that are typically 60 seconds or less. Technically, as far as the platforms are concerned, you can go up to 3 minutes in length. We generally recommend keeping them between 60 and 90 seconds. These are recorded vertically in a 9:16 aspect ratio, which is how you're seeing Sam on the screen right now. And they're served to viewers via an algorithmic feed. So the algorithmic feed means that you scroll and you don't decide what the next video you watch is, right? At this point, we're very familiar with this mechanism. You are scrolling, you are not making active decisions on the next video that you watch. This is why short form has the highest ROI and is number one for lead gen and engagement, because it allows you to be placed in front of people who would otherwise never elect to watch your video, right? So they get a first impression without needing to opt in for that first impression, right? This is why video is so important, is because you are getting that first impression. Short form video is a great way to do that without someone needing to elect, right? Huge pros and cons between long form and short form. We'll get into all of that later. But first, at a base level, long form video meets 3 criteria, right? These tend to be 8 to 15 minutes. The time span between 3 minutes and 8 minutes is known as the video dead zone. And what I mean by that is no one really elects into that type of content, right? Because if they want short content, they can go to shorts and they can watch something that's less than 3 minutes. If they've already decided to forego shorts, chances are they want to engage with a much more dense piece of content, right? That's why you want these videos to be greater than 8 minutes and often less than 30, right? Our recommended range is 8 to 15 minutes. These are recorded horizontally. This is a 16:9 aspect ratio. It's the same one that you're looking at me or looking at Charlie or looking at Nick, right? So these are a very different type of production, but they also have a huge amount of value specifically in the wealth management space, right? Because wealth management is all about trust. And in order to get trust, you need a certain number of content minutes. Many of you guys in here have probably already heard me talk about this, but content minutes think of it as like each one is a block, right? Your content minute is a minute of content you consume from someone. So in order to exchange your email address for a lead magnet, maybe you only need 5 content minutes, right? In order to trust someone to steward your assets, you might need 30, 40, or 50 content minutes, right? So long form video is a very effective way to reach that saturation point with an individual faster, right? They might watch 2 of your long form videos, whereas they might need to consume 100 of your short form videos to build up the necessary content minutes to make a decision of that scale, right? So short form and long form video work exceptionally well together. And I'm a huge proponent of both. Technically, I will consider podcasts to be a separate type of content. That is technically long form content, but it's very different from long form video as it pertains specifically to YouTube. All right, why is this so important? I can sit here and I can tell you all the reasons I think this is important, but at the end of the day, there are really facts that just back it up that I think are better ways of displaying this. 95% of information shared in a video is retained by the viewer. You all of you in here have experienced this at least once. You will see the second video from someone and you will remember a surprising amount about them and the content they produced earlier, right? Because the retention is written. You guys are reading the captions on the screen right now. It's audio, if I turn the audio on this video, or if you watch the video with sound on, and it's visual. Every way that we as humans have learned to intake information is being leveraged within video content, right? Whereas with written content, you only get one. With podcasts, you only get one, so on and so forth. And people aren't on here just watching cat videos or learning how to cook fried chicken for their meal or something like that. 50% of investors say that social media impacts whom they hire as a financial professional. 20% back in 2021, mind you, say social media was the sole deciding factor in their decision-making process. And the final piece here, and I think the most important piece, is that misinformation is going to dominate when the fiduciary community doesn't add their voice. For any of you guys who are getting distracted by the very flashy, very edited video that was playing on your screen for the last 60 seconds, you know now that the people who are selling IULs, the people that are selling IULs specifically as replacements to Roth IRAs, and people who are doing everything short of scamming or maybe even scamming people and making their financial lives worse, I can promise you that they are making videos. And so when we're not contributing, when we're not a voice against that tide of misinformation, this is what they have to consume. And for your average investor, they can't tell the difference until you're able to show them that there is another side to financial literacy and there's another side to financial security. But does it turn into ROI? Does this actually turn into something beneficial for my business? Because we're not here wondering if we want to be content creators for the fun of it. At the end of the day, we're doing marketing for the sake of generating an ROI for our business, helping more families, creating a tangible impact for them and for ourselves and for our teams, right? Skylar's a great example of this. He started out, Nick, was he at 20 mil when he started?
Yeah, he was still pretty early on.
Yeah, so that's that middling range where when you're a solo advisor, you now have the assets and the income to pay for your life, right? You have a pretty solid paycheck, but it'd be hard to argue that you have an enterprise, right? Skylar doubled in 12 months. So it makes sense that he would say that video is the best marketing opportunity with the best ROI, right? He posted 11 videos and got 8 clients. This is not the norm. This is not what every single person does. This is a great flashy story, but this is not what happens to everyone. But the thing that does happen to everyone is the catalyst stage. And Skylar, I think, is an extreme example of it, but every single person that we've worked with has experienced this to some extent or another, which is that when you start posting videos, it activates your existing network. The third or fourth rings of your network, people you don't talk to on a day-to-day basis or do business with currently, they go, oh, I didn't know that this is what you were doing. I would love to have a conversation. Those are those semi-allocated video conversions where it's, yeah, this came from video. The catalyst of this was video, but this was someone that I already knew and someone who already knew me, right? So this is a fantastic bump in ROI and in overall conversions at the very beginning of starting to make video, this thing that we call the catalyst stage, right? So then you get into cold outreach, or cold people who are actually learning about you. By the time they talk with you, of course, they're warm. So Griffin was really struggling with this because he's in a really rural area. Like I had to Google his office and there's no one around him. It is such a rural area. But because he trusted the delivery system and he trusted that video was a great way, not only to get in touch with people nationally, but actually to get in touch with people locally, he was able to add 6 new households. And as of the time of him filming this video, he was onboarding 4 more in 2 months of posting video. So this is that initial push where you are, in the case of Griffin, you are now the go-to advisor in your market. You are the one that everyone is now going to think of when they're in a rural place like Alpena, Michigan. I'm having some Wi-Fi issues. Can you guys still hear me okay?
Yep.
Yeah, gotcha.
We
Okay,
got you. Nick.
good. Awesome. It's probably just that a video is playing, so I'm getting some playback issues. But so then we look at Alicia. This is another great example of where video can play a role, yes, for what I would consider to be traditional advisors. So a fee is financial planning and everything wrapped into a single fee. It can also work for people who are in the outer rings of the financial planning space. In the case of Alicia, she is both a CFP and a CDFA. And so this turned out to be an unbelievably effective strategy for her because she was able to speak to a specific event, divorce, and she was able to have conversations with people who were experiencing very defined problems, right? So the moment she started posting videos, we already knew that there were going to be thousands of people experiencing that event and experiencing that problem in real time. So there was no surprise to us that it took less than a month for her to close her first retainer client. And I think Alicia is actually such a good story because she also has a wealth management business that did not see immediate results from video at all. Like really had a long tail on it. And she closed, I think it was 6 or 8 retainer clients in the first couple of months of doing video, but only 1 or 2 of them converted over into the wealth management business. And they weren't massive accounts, right? And so she's a really good example of having success on one side of an offer and having a much longer tail to other pieces. And we see this all the time with clients. We see that when you're making videos, there is this long ramp up tail. Even if there is the initial catalyst bump, even if there is the initial go-to in the market bump, even if there's the offer bump, there is still a long tail to turning this into a consistent system, right? So this is not something that just happens immediately and then you're going to be begging to turn the faucet off. There is still a long tail to it. And I consider that to be the most beneficial part of this because it means that it's a salesperson working for you around the clock and these videos are evergreen, right? So even if that video didn't blow up on day one, it's still going to be something that can drive traffic and can drive new households into your business at any given time of the day even, right? So we look at the success stories, we look at the sepia tinted amazing versions of this, and it's easy to wonder why advisors aren't doing video. If it works, then why isn't everyone doing this? Why isn't everyone putting time in to do video? It's so hard. Like doing video is not an easy thing. I can attest, I've done 2,000 of them. This is not an easy thing to do. This is not an easy thing to stay consistent with, right? And so it's not necessarily that people are looking at the ROI of video. It's been well established across James Knoll and Kevin Lum and all of these amazing advisors who are adding hundreds of millions of dollars. Like the ROI is there to be gotten. The problem lies not in the outcome, but in the system. So the problem with the system right now is that the tools that exist are overly complex and non-specialized for advisors. Nick and I experienced this with Notion and with Asana, right? You can throw together a content organization system in Asana and it works, but you're not going to get the best result out of it, right? It is also extremely time consuming, not just time consuming from the perspective of filming videos. Sitting down and filming is actually probably one of the least time consuming parts. The time consuming piece is the learning curve, right? It's the management. It's the oversight of the system so that you can create time in your day just to sit down and write scripts and film. And then the biggest piece for most is price, right? The average retainer, like for us on a completely done for you agreement, right? So when we work with advisors and say, we're going to do everything for you, it's 60 grand a year, right? So that immediately cuts out a very large portion of advisors simply because cost is too prohibitive, right? That's something that we saw immediately and we're like, that's something that I believe we can change. Then we have compliance. This, I am blown away. Like this slide could maybe be updated to remove compliance just in the last couple of months because all of the major compliance firms, the Greenboards, the Hadriuses of the world, they've caught up. They're like, yeah, we can help you do video, no problem. And in the conversations I've had with advisors in the last couple of months, they're like, oh yeah, compliance won't be an issue. We've already got that handled, which is a complete 180 from when we started doing this. It's absolutely insane. And then the final one, of course, is knowledge. I just don't know what I don't know, and there aren't any resources out there to help me get started. Hopefully, we're going to be one of those resources today to show you specifically the mistakes that advisors tend to make and help you avoid a couple of those pitfalls as you're thinking about building this overall system. So with that, Nick, I'll kick it over to you. Let's talk about those mistakes a little bit.
Yeah, so if you guys try to DIY your video content, we want to make sure you avoid these 4 common mistakes that basically every advisor we see makes, that completely tanks their faith in video, their motivation to keep doing video, because they just don't get any results because they make these, they seem like tiny mistakes, but they can make all the difference in your actual outcomes here. First one is poor profile design. So the 2 profiles on screen are both Nate and I's TikTok profiles. That's how your profiles should be constructed. But the very first thing most advisors think when they open up TikTok or YouTube or Instagram and create their social media profile is they think, okay, I should brand this after my company. It should be XYZ Advisors Inc. My profile picture should be my firm's logo. My handle should, again, be XYZ Advisors Inc. And then my bio should just be, we help pre-retirees manage their money, schedule a call to meet with our team below. That doesn't work. People follow people on social media. They do not follow companies. Every time they see a company appear in their feed, they just like immediately tune it out because they assume it's an ad, and they're probably right most of the time. It's usually an ad if they see it coming from a company. So especially if you're the founder of your firm, if you're obviously an employee of a firm, you're going to have to work around this a little bit with your firm owners. But you should make personally branded profiles to you, an individual advisor. If anyone else in your firm also wants to make videos, they should also have their own individual accounts. We can get into wrapping up into an actual company page that you don't expect to perform well, but we'll leave that aside. But they should be personally branded to you so people can actually build a connection, build trust with you as they are watching your content and getting to understand your face, how you talk, and more importantly, what you actually say in your videos. So we'll run through this profile construction blueprint here real quick. Your name should be you plus any credentials that you have. And just to be clear, your name does not have to be unique. Thankfully, I have a very generic name, Nick Meyer. I am probably the millionth person in the world named Nick Meyer. So that does not have to be unique. Your handle is the thing that has to be unique. So name plus any credentials like CFP. Profile picture should be you. Ideally, it's a nice professionally taken headshot. It's a lot easier to do this today because you could do something that's AI generated that looks pretty good. We still recommend using an actual professional headshot if you have one. And then you see that both Nate and I, the little trick to help you stand out in profile feeds is to put like your brand color behind you as a solid background and really make your face pop. Your tag/handle, this is what has to be unique. We do recommend that it's the same across all platforms or as many platforms as you can get, just to make sure that if someone sees you across different platforms, they immediately understand whether it's you or whether it's a fake account that you will inevitably see start to pop up of you if you start to have any success at all. We recommend that it includes a couple things. One is hopefully your name, either first or last, and then some sort of indicator as to what your content is about. Like you'll see that mine is Nick Talks Money, Nate's is Net Worth Nate. If you were to read these, you would immediately understand what our content is about. We're talking about personal finance. We're talking about money. If you're interested in that, give us a follow. Your bio should be your value proposition for your content, not what you actually do as a financial advisor. It should be what someone that follows your page should expect to receive inside of their feed every week or every day, every month, however many times you post. So mine was, I'm a personal finance fund. And then Nate led with some credibility and then said, I make money simple. So again, we're not trying to do our whole sales pitch here for, hey, come join my financial advisor practice. Okay, come work with me. Let me steward your wealth. We're not there yet. We want to build up the trust first so that we can build up that trust by getting someone to follow you first on your social media accounts, consume your content. And then that last piece of the bio there is your link in bio. So this is a dedicated links page. Make sure it's mobile optimized because 99.9% of people that go to this will be viewing it on their mobile device. The exception there is maybe long form YouTube videos. We see a more evenly split percentage between desktop computers and phones. But this should be a page that brings people to, again, mobile optimized, tells them a little bit about you, gives them some free resources like free guides, lead magnets, etc., that are relevant to your ideal clients. This is when you start to bring them down your actual client funnel to see if they're a good fit to work with you. And that's also where you give them the opportunity to schedule an introductory call, a discovery call with you if they think that they would like to work with you and help you or manage your resources. This is pretty similar across every social media platform. They've all basically converged into understanding that this format works for everything. So this is basically the same across all of them. For the actual bio, we'll dive a little bit deeper into it here because it is so important to get right. Because again, this is your like top of the end, top of funnel sales page. You can think of it like so many more people, an order of magnitude difference of people will see your social media page, your profile page, than they will your website. So you want to make sure that it is as optimized as possible and creates a great first impression of you. So line one, we'll break down Nate's here. So rapport builder, this is optional depending on how many characters you have. Like the TikTok example we showed, they had the least character count limits of any social media profile or platform. So you'll be able to have like less space in there, but most of the other ones will allow you to do something big like this. Number one, rapport builder. If you've been mentioned in any news outlets, if you've run any awards, if you have any impressive credentials, those are nice to list, especially since you're talking about personal finances. And that might also plant a seed in someone's mind. Oh, this person's a certified financial planner. If I ever need help with money, I could probably reach out to them without being too overt and too salesy about it. Line number two, your value proposition. So again, what does your content solve for the viewer? What sort of value does your content provide to the viewer? And then line number three is call to action. So point them to go to the next step in your funnel. And we like to think of this as a middle of funnel call to action, not a bottom of funnel. A bottom of funnel will be schedule your call with me right here. Middle of funnel is, hey, here's some free resources. And then, oh, there is a call link inside of there. So if anyone does want to take that next step, if they do feel like they have enough of those content minutes consumed that Nate was talking about, where enough level of trust has been built up, then they can do that. But we're not expecting them to at this point. Mistake number two is poor production quality, specifically where it counts. So if you look at any of the videos that we film for advisors, like they are filmed on like our equipment set up in our studio is probably like $10,000+. Like it is very nice stuff. You do not need that high of a quality if you're an advisor, but margins do make a little bit of a difference, but you don't need to worry about it too much. As long as you have a recent model phone that records video at a quality where someone wouldn't think, oh, that looks like super grainy. It looks like someone recorded this on a toaster. As long as you're past that stage, you're good. And then audio and lighting honestly matters so much more than your video quality actually does. Getting a nice plug-in microphone like the Rode Video Mic Me C that we have on the screen right there, it costs like $80 and it literally 10x's your audio quality from what you get off of a normal iPhone. Or especially if you take one thing out of this webinar, AirPods. Never record videos with AirPods. They are terrible, especially, I don't know how like webinars make them sound fine. I'm not recording on them, I'm just listening to them right now. I have an actual mic. But if you try to record a video through AirPods, it sounds so garbled, so bad. People are not going to stand that. They're gonna be like, I'm gonna scroll and listen to something that's been professionally recorded and is easy on my ears. So definitely invest in audio. And of course, if you, like I mentioned, if you record it with your phone, the audio is pretty cheap to upgrade. It's only $80. Lighting, I will show you exactly why lighting is so important on the next slide. But if you can just get a softbox lighter tube like we show on the screen, it's honestly, you can get them from anywhere from $80 to $100 for a pair, or like the ones we use in the studio are probably about $500 each. It makes such a humongous difference in how you actually appear on camera, way bigger of a difference than your actual camera does. Here are a couple of pictures that illustrate that. So on the left is a picture of me many hairstyles ago in my old office. On the left, the very far left picture was just a picture of me with my normal office overhead light on, my window open to my side, no lights on in front of me. That's it. So like how you would normally work in your office. You'll see you can still see me technically, but it is terribly lit. Like you can't actually see my face. Everything else is lit up behind me. The side of my face is lit up. It's not good. The right picture on the left side there, that all I did in that picture different was I turned off my overhead light, I shut my blinds, and I turned on two softbox lights that were about 45 degrees on either side of my front. And it evenly lit me and clearly distinguished me from the background. And then on the right is an example that we did in our office a little bit more recently, where again, I only had the overhead light on top of me in that left picture, and on the right picture, I had one softbox light on in front of me, and then we had this cool little light behind us that cast a beam of light behind us. And that picture on the right, those were taken with our studio grade equipment. So a like $5,000 camera can't even make up for poor lighting. So you really want to make sure that you invest in lighting if you do want to come across well on camera. And Softbox lights are the best, but if you don't have that much space because they are large and they're cumbersome, there are panel lights that do work. Just make sure that they're adjustable. Like you don't just want to be stuck with one super bright cold light shining on your face and drowning everything out. Make sure your light's adjustable if it's not a softbox, especially. Mistake number 3. Nate alluded to this a little bit earlier on, but you don't want to choose the wrong format, especially when you are in the early stages, the beginning stages of creating video content. So by content formats, we mean short form videos, long form videos, and then podcasts. Podcasts are awesome if you can get people to listen to them, which is the problem. It's the main problem of podcasts. The discoverability is absolutely terrible, especially if you don't have an existing large audience. Even if you do have an existing audience, most of them honestly just won't care or just won't be able to allocate an hour or two every single week to listening to your podcast. So you still won't get many built-in viewers. So even though podcasts do a great job of nurturing and building up those content minutes, hey, someone could listen to one podcast with you. That'd be an hour of content. And they could be stoked to potentially work with you. But if you never get people to listen to it in the first place, it doesn't matter. And another bad thing about podcasts is we were actually just talking to an advisor last week, and he said that he pays $1,000 for every single one of his podcast episodes that gets produced. And that is a very common theme in the industry. This is one of the biggest podcast production agencies in the business that he is working with, specifically with advisors. So if you have to pay $1,000 for every podcast episode that you produce, and you spend at least 4 hours of your own time between pre-production, actually recording, and post-production producing it, and you post it and it gets 5 listens and you don't see any results, how many weeks are you able to consistently do that before you say, this is a money pit, I'm not going to make any progress here, I'm going to stop and just go back to crossing my fingers and hoping that I get referrals to grow my firm and not do anything actually about it? So we don't recommend starting with podcasts. Once you build up the content reps with these other different types of content formats, video formats, then you can go into podcasts, especially when you've already built up an audience of people that actually care and consume your existing social media content. They're more likely to make the crossover, but definitely don't start with podcasts. And I would make a similar argument for long form videos, though they are a lot easier of a hurdle to get over than podcasts. But still, it takes a lot of time to produce them. They are still pretty expensive. Like we list $175 per long form video as like the lower end. If you were to get like a basic edit on your videos, if you want to go any higher than that, it could easily get up to $500 or even $1,000 plus per video there. But more importantly than the cost or the time commitment, long form videos are a skill that you need to be really good at in order to stand out from the pack, because obviously there are a lot of advisors out there making YouTube videos. You don't need to be the best. You need to be like top 50th percentile in order to stand out, basically. But you get better at content by making more and more content. So you can either do that with long form videos and just understand that your first 20, 30, 40, 50 of them probably aren't going to perform very well. Or you could do short form videos first, which have a much faster iteration window where you can make basically, you could sit down, record like 10 in like an hour, post all of those, see how they do, and then repeat that process every week or two. And you'll get much faster feedback on your content. You get many more reps actually recording this content. And then when you get really good at something that we call maximizing the value per second of your video, which is really important with short form video content, because People don't have shorter attention spans nowadays. They just have a higher bar for the quality of content that they consume. So if they get a couple seconds deep into a video and they don't sense that value is coming, or they aren't really hooked in and pulled in by a curiosity gap that was opened, they're not going to keep watching. It's a lot easier to build that muscle with short form video content and then expand your value per second out to a longer content medium than it is to try to start off by making a 10, 15, 20 minute long video and just speaking as you normally would without all of this training into making a valuable, like a high value per second video. So what we recommend to advisors most of the time is starting with short form video content, super cheap, super fast to iterate, then stepping up to long form video content, doing both at the same time because it's a symbiotic relationship. Short form video is really great at driving traffic. Long form video is really good at converting that traffic, nurturing that traffic, and bringing them deeper down your funnel. Podcasts are really optional. It's really if you're super passionate about a certain thing or a certain topic, like if you're really passionate about retirement planning, or you have a really good idea for a long form podcast interview show or something that you feel like you would be fulfilled doing it, and you would be able to commit to doing it for at least a year, even if you didn't see any results, just because you enjoy doing it so much. That's where podcasts can come into play. They can be a very powerful tool for converting clients down the line once you actually get that listenership. But again, they're really hard, man. And I'll let Nate
really are.
This last one, number 4 here. Nate, what's mistake number 4?
Yeah, and I've got a couple notes on here really quickly that I want to point out. First and foremost, that the example podcast we used is our podcast. So like we're still big fans of content in every single format, right? But our podcast is very much a selfish endeavor for me in a big way. Like I fly out tomorrow because I learned about an advisor who is spending $1 million a month on paid ads. And I have a medium by which to go have an hour-long conversation with him. That's amazing. And yeah, there is absolutely a chance that someone will learn more about what I do or what he does, and it will create a business outcome for one of us. But that's not the starting point for us. The point really is that knowledge. And that has been such a beneficial piece of the podcast. And the other thing I wanted to add really quickly is the idea of the clay pots analogy. Charlie, have you heard this one? Have you heard the clay pots analogy?
I don't think so. Nate, remind me.
Okay, so there's a pottery class that you're taking. And you walk in, and the teacher immediately splits the class in half and says to one half, I want you to make the perfect pot. And to the other half, the teacher says, I want you to make 100 pots today. By the end of the class, which half made the better pot? Probably the one that made 100.
More at bats, right?
They just got the reps. And so when we think about content creation, for someone who's never done it before, you have to assume you're going to start bad. It'd be a crazy idea to believe that you would just start off and be amazing at it. And so which of these three is going to give you the most at bats for the lowest cost and the one you can do at the highest possible velocity? That's short form video, right? It tees you up so much faster into the other content formats and opens the door to all of them for you. Because at the end of the day, just like you're seeing on here, we partake in all of them. That's what we would expect of any advisor who gets into this for a couple of years.
We've got a few questions, and this slide actually speaks to two of them. So if I could,
Yeah.
one of them is I'll weigh in on the podcast. You guys, we've got RA Collective. I think we've done 65 or 70 episodes. And we promote that via email. We've got a big email list, right? So we might drive a couple hundred downloads per episode is probably our average. Some spikes, some are a little bit less than that. 80% is that, 80% of that, to your point about they're not real visible, 80% comes from email marketing. And we know that just based on the link clicks coming out of the email. So yeah, podcasts, you've got to be strategic with your podcast to really realize the ROI behind it. Anyway, we could have a deeper conversation about that. I want to ask also about short form. I see a lot of advisors, the question I get often is, do I need to create specific short form or can I cut clips out of a long form? I know my answer, which is get specific on what your intent is, create a short form. Otherwise, you've just got 30 or 60 seconds of a long form video, which doesn't have the same intent. What's your reply to that?
I agree. Nick said it so well earlier that people don't have shorter attention spans. They just have a higher bar for the content they consume. And so you will experience what you might think of as a short attention span from your viewers if you post content that isn't well put together and doesn't have high intent, to your point. And particularly in the beginning, I've seen plenty of advisors who make what I would consider, unfortunately, to be kind of throwaway content. Because it's like, I already did the podcast. So yeah, I'm going to use Riverside's AI clips and I'm going to get 5 clips and I'm going to post those because I should be, right? I should be doing video. And I think it's so important to say that I don't think anyone should be doing video. We're all business owners. We get to decide what we should do. That's the whole point, right? It's just a question of the direction of that effort and not doing anything in a distracted way. I feel like taking a podcast and clipping it is such a perfect example of kind of the lowest common denominator. What can I do to feel like I'm meeting some fake expectation? There is no expectation that you do video, right? There are benefits to doing video, sure. But I think it's either doing it with intent or not doing it, because otherwise you very much can ruin your reputation with humans and with the algorithms of these platforms by publishing content that isn't up to snuff.
Yeah, agreed. I'm glad we're on the same.
Was there another question, Charlie?
Oh, there was just an observation. You guys were talking early on, Nate, about the success that you guys had with TikTok, right? I think one thing we've got to look at is a big evolution since the time that you and Nick started posting is obviously the introduction of AI, end of 22, beginning of 23, where I believe authenticity is likely the greatest benefit that comes out of video, right? Because so much of the content that we consume elsewhere is AI generated content. It's not authentically the advisor or the person posting it. And this industry is actually, and I say this a lot, so people who know me or are on here, it's the fourth least trusted industry in the US. That's a poll from 2023. It's a Gallup poll, so it's a credible source. They actually still call advisors stockbrokers in that poll. And so trust is a huge factor. And in a world where there's a lot of inauthentic content out there, I think video is even more important today than it was last year, or say 2023, beginning of 23, when ChatGPT was on its rise.
Yeah, I think you nailed it, because the expectation or the assumption you might make with the introduction of AI is that there's going to be so much slop out there that it's going to drown me out, right? I'm just not going to be able to get any reach.
Yep.
But I love this exercise. So for anyone who uses a social media platform, whether you're on Instagram, you're on TikTok, you're on YouTube Shorts, or if you just have the app on your phone and you want to scroll for a little bit, on average, they will show you an ad once every 7 videos. But the way you will experience it is you would say, I feel like I'm being shown an ad every other video, right? Because that is how fast you as a viewer can work through content that you don't want to watch, right? On average, it's 0.5 seconds per video, assuming you're not going to engage. So there can be as many videos out there as you could possibly want, and people would have so much agency to scroll through them and arrive at the authentic piece of content, right? So it's not actually you being diluted, it's you being magnified, because they just spent the last 10 seconds scrolling through 40 videos and finally arrived at one that actually delivered value in an authentic way. If anything, they are going to be so much more grateful and engaged with that content, and they're going to stay with it, because the risk of scrolling away from your content is that they might spend another 4 minutes scrolling through content they don't want to watch. So what we've seen across the board is that it improves engagement. It doesn't detract from it.
That's great. You guys bring I like the stats you bring to our conversation.
Thank you. Yeah. It's fun to do the research, right? It's fun to actually understand if this is viable, because that was such a big question that I had. When I was first starting this, I was like, am I the outlier? Is it because I'm younger? Is it because of who I want to serve? Is it because of the timing? Because TikTok was new? Are there all of these reasons that could explain my success that could never be operationalized for another advisor? And that's where the research really proved me wrong. And we've now seen over the course of the last 3 years that thesis has played out and been correct. We've seen so many advisors succeed and build multi-billion-dollar firms with content marketing and video marketing specifically. But man, when Nick and I started in 2023, there was a real question as to whether or not we were just the odd ones out and that this would actually never work for someone else. So thank goodness that wasn't the case for all sorts of reasons.
Yeah.
All right, we made one more promise to you guys that we haven't held up yet, which is this idea of building a scalable content system, like I was talking about at the beginning, right? So as I mentioned, creating videos is hard. There is a huge amount of work that needs to be done between identifying what type of content you want to create and actually posting said content, right? So you need to be able to do the research to identify and ideate. You need to be able to write an effective script and follow the best practices. You need an effective way to organize all of that content. Then you need to be able to sit down and record that. You need to have a good way to edit it, and then you need to have a way to post it, right? So 4 years ago, 5 years ago, when I was really starting to build a scalable system that could exist next to having a very busy practice, the way that I did this is I would scroll TikTok for way too long and pick 2 or 3 videos that I liked that I wanted to take inspiration from. That was my version of identifying and ideating, right? So then I would use those ideas and I would start to come up with some scripts. And in doing so, I would remove some of the ideas and I would add some new ones until I had maybe 15 or 20 scripts that I really liked, right? I was doing all of that in a Notion template. So I just had them as little cards in the Notion Kanban board, and I was putting in custom tagging. I built it all out, very probably over-engineered it, to be frank. so that I could move them all into the ready to film column. And then I could actually sit down and record, which I was doing by just pulling up my phone, plugging in a microphone at the bottom and recording that content. And then I would take those videos and I would upload them to a Dropbox folder. And I would go out and hire a editor on Fiverr or Upwork. And I had a big sheet that had all my brand colors and all my notes and all the things I like to see for my content. And I probably went through 15 or 16 editors over the course of 3 years because no one could really deliver what I wanted to see. And then once they did deliver some semblance of a good video, then I would be able to go in and post these videos to all 5 platforms manually, which took about a half hour every single day because I was posting a video a day, right? So you can imagine the insane amount of effort going into this process. And when Nick and I sat down and said, we want to make this better, meaning we want to make it effortless and we want to make it affordable, we had to check every single one of these boxes, right? So that's the promise that we make with Sage. That's the promise that we teach in the Advisor Video Academy, is turning this into an unbelievably scalable system that allows you to identify and ideate using all of the research that we've already done, right? Charlie, to your point, we've been in it. We've been researching all of this. We've been spending a huge amount of time doing it. You might as well skip that learning curve and understand what works best from an ideation perspective. Ideation is just, what am I going to talk about? What do I start the video with? Then scripting it using the best practices. Scripting and editing have been the best use cases for AI that we've discovered. To your point earlier, Charlie, you were saying that you were putting together an avatar or trying to put together an AI avatar. It's just not there yet. It's nightmare fuel. It's true nightmare fuel.
Dude, it was terrible. Listen, we're on Descript. I don't mean to be critical of Descript because they got some great features, but it's maybe a B level. I'm sure you can certainly pay more money and probably get a better output. Upload a headshot and shoulders don't move, right? And your eyebrows are super expressive. Yeah, it's not there yet. In fact, my wife saw it. I think we were talking about that before we let everybody in the room. My wife saw it and was like, I'm going to have nightmares for a week. It was just so weird. And because of the mustache, you can't really see my teeth. So it gave me big horse teeth, super white. And yeah, it was rough.
Yeah. Imagine the betrayal of spending weeks building trust with someone that you're thinking about. You're thinking about entrusting them with your assets only to discover, because there was a slightly botched video, that they'd been AI the whole time.
Right.
That's a horrible. I would feel betrayed and suddenly I would lose trust in not just them, but perhaps in the industry. I'd be like, I don't know how I'm ever going to vet advisors from here. And so again, people will gravitate towards the people who are authentic. Recording on your own, on your phone with a microphone, that authenticity is your superpower as an advisor, right? We've already done it. We're storytellers, we're quote machines. Like, that's just how we operate in our businesses. And so recording is such a great place to continue to do it manually. And using AI on the organization side, on the scripting side, and on the editing side. All of those have been incredible use cases to speed this process up, right? So that you can go in, you can look at all of the trends that we've identified, the inspirational videos that we've found to be useful in our own research, and you can use those as inspiration to then work with the AI to write your script, right? And have it automatically organized for you in a not so over-engineered fashion like I was dealing with Notion, so that you feel very comfortable getting from identification to recording in a couple of minutes rather than a couple of hours, so that you can dedicate your limited time doing the one thing that's the highest leverage, that's recording the videos, right? And once you have that raw file, you can choose if you would like to use our AI editor, which will throw it together and do 90% of the work for you, and you can have a video back in 3 minutes. Or if you want higher touch, you can always just submit it to the human editors, right? We have a team of 18 editors behind Sage that can put the finishing touches on a video to a level that AI just can't replicate at this moment, right? And then rather than needing to go in and post everything manually, you can just post it all through Sage, right? You already have all the context you needed, just throw in your descriptions and hit post, and it will go to every single platform you would like to distribute to. So that's the layout. I can throw this QR code up here just so you guys have something to scan if you do want to check it out or have a demo with us. But it looks like we've got some questions, Charlie. I can play some catch up.
Yeah, let me get a couple questions in here. Rob asks, Nate, you're using a lapel mic. Do you recommend that? Do you hook it up to your computer, your iPhone? Talk a little bit about the mic you're using today.
Yes, yeah. So when we think about microphones, I am hooked up to our studio camera. So this lav mic is attached to a wireless transmitter that lives in my back pocket. That's plugged into the camera. The camera is plugged into a USB-C on my laptop. That's my preferred setup for all my Zoom calls and that sort of thing, particularly for anyone who's interested in investing in like $1,000 or $2,000 camera. All the new ones work as phenomenal webcams. And so being able to use it as your webcam makes it make so much more sense financially, because now it's just going to fit into all the work you do virtually anyways. So that's why I have this lav mic. This one is the Hollyland Lark Max 2, lots of names in there. And so that's probably like the best lav mic, and I'm a huge fan of that for anything seated and that sort of thing. But for anyone who is just filming videos with their microphone, my recommendation is actually a small shotgun mic, the one that Nick was showing on the equipment list. That one just plugs right into the bottom of your phone in the charging port. That's the easiest one to do by far. That's the one that I'm going to put in the chat. That is the Rode Video Mic Me L or Me C. So the Me L is your lightning plug, your Me C is your USB-C. Those are awesome. As far as microphones, that's really the only one that I would recommend, unless you want to go spend $300 on some lav mics or something of that sort. But this, as an $80 microphone, is like better than 95% of the mics that we've tested and outstrips everything in its price range by 1.5 miles.
Nice. A lot of questions coming in, guys. So we'll, with a couple
Awesome.
of minutes here to the top of the hour, I'll rip through them.
Let's do them.
Yeah, Sanjeev asks, after somebody watches your video, how do they contact you? Is it a QR code, or do you push them to a different, it's not necessarily in this question, but my curiosity is, do you push them to the next step of the funnel, or do you want to give them the opportunity to schedule with you at every stage?
Yeah, so this is where the links page comes in handy. So at the top of any of your profiles, you're going to see this URL that says hoskincapital.com/links. That leads you to a landing page with a booking link and lead magnets and more selling material, that sort of thing. That's how someone would contact me after watching a video. And then in the video, really maybe once every 10 videos, it's not that often, I will include a call out to say, hey, we actually do this, or we actually help you solve this problem as financial planners. You can schedule some time with my team at the link in my bio. So that will push them from the video to my profile and to my bio, and they'll be able to click there. Specifically on YouTube videos, you can also put this link in the very top of the description so that they can just scroll down from the video and click that link right there. That's probably the most fluid version of this funnel, right? So the overall funnel is very simple. Make organic content, put a link to a landing page in your bio. On that landing page, you have some selling materials, some introductions, some FAQs, and most importantly, a form or a booking link button. And that takes you to your Calendly, your Geo Reminders, your Once Hub, your Zoom scheduler, whatever it happens to be. That's how they inevitably have a conversation with you.
Yeah, and I would say, as far as what actual call to actions to make in your videos, we like to split ours and the people we work with between top of funnel, middle of funnel, and bottom of funnel. Top of funnel should either be no call to action at all, just end the video hard after the value's done. This is great for just maximizing your overall reach. Or you can say one engagement CTA, follow to learn more about money. Like this video if you learn something, leave a comment if you have any questions, different things like that. But make sure you only make one call to action in all of your pieces of content. If you make more than that, people won't do any of them. For middle of funnel, that's when we usually push towards lead magnets. And again, those are going to be link in bio. So if you want my free 2026 tax guide, go to my link in bio. Or you could also do like a free intro call there. We usually say those till bottom of funnel though. And yeah, bottom of funnel is just straight up. If you want to work with me and my team, schedule a discovery call. We'll see if you're a good fit.
Yep. Very cool. William's got a great question. How often do you recommend posting when you start out? Is a weekly short form video enough? Or do you need to be posting every day, every other day?
Yeah. Nick, I'm curious to get your take on this as well, but I would say rather than thinking of starting out on a weekly basis, think of it as a project. A really good project to experiment with video is somewhere between 40 and 60 videos. So when you think of it as a project, you need to come up with 40 ideas. And then you need to turn those 40 ideas into scripts. And then you sit down and film all of them over the course of a couple of days, right? So once you've built this video vault for yourself, you have all of these assets, then you can make strategic decisions around how to distribute those. My preference, particularly in the early days, is to go fast. Distribute them five a week, right? Do it every weekday, that sort of thing. But then you're not thinking of it as, oh gosh, I have another weekly to do. It's no, I'm going to do this. And then next month, I'm going to go look at my numbers and see how it's doing and decide if I want to scale up or scale down or stay right on track. But then you're working in monthly or quarterly jumps. It makes it way easier on you, and it makes it far more scalable from the perspective of momentum, because you do need to be consistent. You do need to be high volume when it comes to posting to these platforms. The way you achieve that effectively is with batching, always.
My question, do you guys use a scheduler? Are you posting manually? And do you find that because it's on a scheduler, it throttles exposure at all?
So we have been lucky with it not throttling exposure. The only thing that I would say to that effect is if you're starting with a brand new channel, like you've never posted anything, you just created the profile for the first time, it is beneficial to post maybe the first 20 videos manually.
Yep.
One, because you're going to learn the platform, right? So you're going to spend time on the platform. Another big piece of launching a profile is going in and engaging with content, right? Being on the platform, commenting on other people's content. So by posting manually, you're posting your video, you're spending some time on the platform, you're checking your comments, you're engaging the way the platform wants you to engage. And once you've posted those first 20, it becomes very reasonable for you to then start using a scheduler, and it doesn't nuke engagement.
Okay, cool. What do you recommend for a scheduler? We use a platform called Gain. It's a really intensive platform. We've used Buffer, we've used Metricool.
I got to recommend Sage because we go straight to the APIs,
Oh,
right?
but I didn't realize you guys had your own scheduler. That's awesome.
Yep.
Andrew asks, what have you learned about video content creation from guys like James Knoll and Kevin Lum? Why are they more successful than other advisors?
Yeah. So I'm lucky enough to be a close friend with Kevin Lum. Like I absolutely adore that man. I met him first in 2021, maybe at a conference, something like that. Like when he had $18 million in assets under management and was just getting started. And he's hands down the kindest man I've ever met in my entire life. And to be honest, I would credit that for his success. Like more than
Cool.
any advisor I've ever met, he cares. Like he just genuinely wants people to know this stuff. Like the videos that he creates, even if he doesn't necessarily feel like he's producing 100% unique content, right? There's this feeling, I think I saw a comment in here about there's what else is left to talk about from a financial planning standpoint, right? Haven't we talked about all of it? Like how much could we actually do to add on to the wealth of financial planning information that exists publicly? Even if it's not 100% unique, Kevin sees it as a mandate to make it approachable and make it calming, to be this like steady rock in all the waters that are trying to destabilize you online. No, I'm just here to teach you about something that I know is important and you know you will benefit from. And that genuine care, like that true fiduciary duty for content, like my job is to give you the best information possible and act in your best interest at all times. That's why he's so successful. The other piece is that he's just been doing it for years. This is a 5-year timeline. This is a 7-year timeline. He did not suddenly go viral, right? I encourage anyone to go back to James Knoll's channel and go to his videos and click oldest on YouTube, and you will see dozens that have 100 views, 1,500 views. Like these numbers that you would not consider to be crazy from a performance standpoint. And he just did the reps, that genuine care, doing the reps, showing up the same way you would for a client. That's what sets them apart.
Yep. That's awesome. And you got to the one question, Nate, that I didn't get to about what topics are left. Alan chimes in and says, no, there's a lot of topics left for financial planning. So, Alan, my challenge to you, Alan's a personal friend, my challenge to you is let's fill that void, man.
Absolutely. And everyone deserves this, right? That's why I'm doing this. My job is to make 1 million people more financially literate. And I can't do that as a financial planner because I can only work with so many households. But if I can help advisors do this at scale, like that's how we ensure that the next generation of humans is more financially secure than the last by filling that warehouse, Alan. This is what we're doing. That's the point. And when you forget that, when you look at this as, oh, I just need to go make more money. And so therefore I'm supposed to be doing marketing. So I'm just going to go do marketing so I can make more money. Right. Humans are like engineered bullshit detectors. They can tell. I don't care how good a salesman you are. They can tell that it's disingenuous. Yep. And so if you're going to come at it from that angle, for all of our sakes, don't. Like, make content because it is a genuine way to help people the same way you practice in your business, right?
Yep. Love it. Nate, Nick, a huge thank you to you guys. A ton of knowledge, a ton of great insight. Lucky to call you friends, lucky to call you partners. Yeah, very cool. Very great presentation. Thanks for what you're doing, and congrats on the success of Sage to this point.
Thank you so much, Charlie. This was such a pleasure. Thank you for having us. And for anyone who needs it, I'm just putting the link in the description really quick.
Yeah, we'll let it roll here for a couple minutes.
Awesome. Perfect.
Yeah, and everybody who attended, like, great turnout. I don't even know how many registrations we had, but great turnout on the show today. You're popular guys, and people want to know about video. There's a crossroad.
A hot topic.
Yeah, that's it. Very cool. We'll get King has a quick question. Put it in there, King. What's that question? All right, King. We're on the edge of our seats here.
I can tell. I can hear his typing right now. I can hear it from here in Denver.
Great question. Great question.
Can Sage help with video editing in a foreign language? Let me put it this way. We can 100% do it, but we won't be able to know if it's right. We can absolutely do the translation. We could even do the dubbing. We could absolutely do the captions, but you might proofread it and be like, this is wrong. And we'd be like, that's the first time I'm hearing about this. So I will say that, yes, we can absolutely work with you, and we could absolutely find a way to make sure that those, like, the results you get are awesome. But I'm not going to make any guarantees about how effective our Russian is.
Whatever language King wants, and then he can proofread and say, okay, here's the changes you need.
Yes, exactly.
All right. Very cool. Guys, again, thank you so much for your time today and your insight. And yeah, awesome. Thanks anybody who showed up. And I guess until the next one, reach out to me, Nate, Nick, if you've got any questions, and we'll get the recording out tomorrow.
Awesome.
Thanks, Charlie.
Thank you so much for your time, Charlie. Thanks everyone for coming.
Good to see you.
All right.